Hello and welcome to State Matters. I'm your host, Matt Muratore. Today we'll be discussing the importance of voting on a local, state, and national level. To join me in that discussion, I have two special guests. My first guest has his master's degree in American history, spent 18 years as a museum and historical society director, is the former chairman of the legislative committee of the Massachusetts Town Clerks Association, as well as the former president of the Massachusetts Town Clerks Association. He's been the town clerk for Plymouth for 25 years. Please welcome Larry Pizer. And my second guest has been living in Plymouth with her husband for 45 years, which is the same amount of time she's been an active member of the League of Women Voters. She now chairs the Voter Service Committee that puts on local, state, and national candidate forums and works to get out the vote and register people to vote. Please welcome Martha Vautrain. Thank you both for joining me today on this in this important discussion. Now, we always start our show by just learning a little bit more about who our guests are. And we'll start with you, Martha. Just a little bit more of a background on you, who you are.
Well, I also have my master's degree in physical therapy.
Oh, great. Now, where'd you work before?
But I retired from Jordan Hospital,
Oh, you did? Okay.
now known as BID.
BID Plymouth, yeah.
And I worked before that for Cura VNA, where I saw a lot of home care patients and got to know Plymouth geographically in a wonderful way. And then I worked in Boston and taught physical therapy at Boston University.
Oh, terrific.
And before that, I worked in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, New York City, and
Are you from
Detroit,
Milwaukee?
Michigan. No, I'm originally from Syracuse, New York, and then my
Okay.
family moved to Detroit, Michigan.
Okay. You love the winter months.
I do, actually.
yeah, you have to, growing up
Yep.
there. Yeah, great,
Right.
great. And Larry, for the people that don't know you, the few people left,
Well,
you have some grandchildren now, too.
I do. I have two children, as a matter of fact. My daughter and Martha's daughter were in school together, and that's how we met.
Oh, is that right?
Going all the way
wow,
back there.
wow.
And two grandchildren in Switzerland and two in Winchester on the far distant North Shore of Massachusetts.
Wow.
Been an American historian all my life, and put that together with being an administrator, and therefore town clerk fits in there.
Yeah, that's great. And you've done a great job, and thank you on behalf of the people of Plymouth for the job you do. It's a your integrity is wonderful, and
Thank you.
You know, it's just a great operations you run. And everyone's so nice when you go into your office too.
We work.
You can't say that with every office, but that office, everyone's very nice when you go in there. So.
And I have to second what you're saying,
Yeah.
Matt, because I have to go into his office and
Yeah, they're just nice people. Yeah.
informative and
Yep.
pleasant.
Yeah. So, again, this is very timely, and I know we're taping this in early May, and the town election is on May 20th. But what I want to talk about first, Larry, and I want to start with you, and just explain to people the process of voting, and try to make the connection with the state and how the state interacts, and the registration and all that, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, towns and cities in Massachusetts are subdivisions of the state. So the laws on voting are state laws. The head of voting in Massachusetts is the Secretary of the Commonwealth. And therefore, voting in Massachusetts is a cooperative venture between the state, which oversees, and the towns, which actually execute the elections. So we have a very good relationship, as a matter of fact, with the elections division of the state. And it's a matter of, for all town clerks, including Plymouth, keeping educated on the process of voting. There is a central voter registry, which is a computer system that links all of the cities and towns in Massachusetts, so that if a person is a voter in Pittsfield and moves to Plymouth, there is an interaction, and the computer says, okay, you've now registered in Plymouth, we're going to delete you in Pittsfield, so that there is a control over all of that. It also works together with how we report for state elections. The vote totals go to the state over the same computer system.
And talk a little bit about the registration portion, because I know that's confusing for people sometimes when they do leave a town and come to a different town. And we have a lot of influx of people that come to Plymouth.
Yes, voter registration, if you work on it every day, seems simple. If you move, you re-register, even if you move within a town.
And you have to go to the town clerk's office to do that.
Well,
or you
used to have to go to the town clerk's office to do that, but there are a lot of different ways of doing it now. What they called motor voter was the first step, where you could go to the registry of motor vehicles. And it turns out that motor voter is not just the registry, but almost every state agency will register a person to vote, and they get the information to the various cities and towns once they've done that registration. There's also now online voter registration, so that if you're sitting at home, or if you're sitting at your friend's home in Southern Africa, you can go online and go to the correct website and register to vote ma.com. Your registration is automatic at that point. There's no excuse for not registering.
Well, I was just going to get into that, and we'll talk with you, Martha, about this, because you're right. There is no excuse then to register, and then there really shouldn't be any excuse for people not to vote then either. So let's talk about that a little bit. I know that you've been part of the League of Women Voters for almost 50 years now, and so you must have seen some changes over the years with voting habits.
Well, I certainly have seen it with registration.
In what way?
When I was first involved with the League here in Plymouth, we registered voters at the grocery stores and other public places like that. We went to all the open houses at the schools and registered voters, and registered a lot at places like that. Now we don't do it anymore at those places.
Because of all these other ways they can do it.
Absolutely. We've sat several years ago, and in a few years past, none, zero. So we focus where we're needed, and right now where we're needed is in the schools, in the high schools. And actually, 3 or 4 years ago, we went to 9 area high schools and voted high school seniors. Now we go to 3 because they do it in their social studies classes and register themselves online, or they use the paper form, but they do it right in their classes, which is great.
That's great.
We're all for that.
That's a good thing. Yeah.
So I didn't really answer your question about the difference in voting. And I don't feel like I can speak to that so much. Unfortunately, we have low voter turnout.
Has it always been? I guess that's my question.
Well,
you know,
I'm not the one to. I've been in voter service for about 5 years, and yes, it has. It being local voting turnout percentages. Larry could probably speak to that a little bit more specifically.
Why do you think, Larry? Is
Well,
let's start with what is the local percentage. Let's start with the local, the state, and the national. What are those usually average?
We were almost at 80% for the national election. It tends to be high 50s, low 60s for an election for the governor, the other 2-year span. And town elections, interesting, tend to be 11 to maybe 18%, both of which are too low, unless there is an issue that grabs the attention of the public. And it's usually a referendum type issue that grabs the attention of the public, rather than electing the officials who are going to be running our community and running our state over a whole long period of time.
And to me, that just seems to be amazing that you have to have, a referendum on, really it's a controversial thing to be putting on the ballot in order to get people out. Now I know just recently the senator and myself and Representative Coulter went to the selectmen on their behalf. They asked us to come to talk to them about the marijuana question. What are the pros and cons? What can they do about adding the question on whether marijuana shops can be open in Plymouth or not, and we gave them all the information, and they were going to put a ballot question on. And that was generating a lot of discussion about people, oh, well, when is the election? When is that election? So at least people started talking about this election coming up on May 20th, but now that question's not happening, so what are the thoughts about the turnout?
Well, one of the suggestions by the Committee of Precinct Chairs is to have a ballot question on every
time,
spring ballot,
yeah.
local ballot, because it is so successful, or has been.
But it would have to be something of, I guess, substance or,
Yes, right.
I keep going back to the word controversy,
Yeah.
I would think.
The only thing that the town can put on the ballot are non-binding public opinion advisory questions, other than 2.5 overrides. Or we hope that the legislature will straighten out the marijuana issue so that it can be put on the ballot in a clear way. So there aren't all that many different issues that can go on the ballot. I'm thinking that if what we're seeing is what we were talking about, there's an obligation, I think, if you're a member of a community, to participate in that community. And one of the major ways we participate is by voting. And it scares me that a lot of people obviously don't feel themselves part of the community enough to first find out who the candidates are. I don't think that the real problem is showing up on a Saturday and spending 10 or 15 minutes with your friends. That's a comparatively easy task. But actually worrying about whether or not this candidate for selectman or that candidate is the appropriate person. Also not hard, but in order to do it, you really have to feel that you're part of the community.
So you really think it's about being not part of the community?
I think community is a very big
Okay.
aspect, and right now I'll encourage people to read the local newspaper, whether you do it online or not, because there's a lot of information about the candidates, and there have been various candidates debates, and there's 1 or 2 still coming up between the Board of Selectmen candidates and or the Planning Board candidates. The League had one a week and a half ago that's still on PAC TV, which is another great resource. They are running the League Candidates Night that was April 27th between the Board of Selectmen and the also included the 2 candidates for redevelopment, Housing Authority, Redevelopment
right.
Authority.
Yeah.
And we're going to have another one on Monday the 15th that will be also, that's for the candidates for the Planning Board. And they're all run and rerun, and I rewatched the April 27th one on YouTube. So there are many opportunities
Who'd have
in
thought
the
we'd have
media.
YouTube we can watch online,
Right.
right? 10 years ago,
Yeah.
who would have thought that?
Yeah, I just went
So
to
there's
YouTube.
plenty-
I'm not
yeah.
even that savvy, but my husband
Oh, come
helped
on,
me.
Martha. Yes, you are. Come on.
Once somebody tells me how to do it, yeah, I did it.
Yeah, but you bring up a great point, though. There are so many different ways, and we talked off camera. There's like 8 different debates that are going on for the selectman race.
Yes.
So there's plenty of opportunities, and there are reruns, and you can read in the newspaper or on TV. There's plenty of ways to get the information, but if people aren't connected then with the community, as you're saying, how do we get them connected? What were some of the other suggestions that came out of the precinct chairs? Well, what's that article?
Well, one of them was very interesting, is to have a challenge that involves a trophy for the precinct that gets the highest voter turnout percentage, and another trophy for the precinct that increases their voter turnout from the year before the most. I think that's fabulous. Why can't we have a voter turnout for our local elections like we did for the fall federal election here in Plymouth? Larry said it was about 70%. And
80.
oh gosh, that's
80%,
fabulous.
yeah, I
My
know.
God. I mean,
So people are more connected with their country than they are with their community then.
Well, we have one precinct that is showing a higher turnout
Yeah, let's
than
talk
the rest
about
of the
let's talk
precincts in
about
town.
Precinct 15, yeah.
Why? Well, someone is motivating them They have very good communications, and they have a sense of community. I think that's quite clear. That's the purpose of being in the Pine Hills, is because you want to be part of a group of people who do all the activities that they have available there. The idea of using social media in an effective way seems to be the modern way of getting people's attention and getting people out to vote. I'm not sure that, obviously, people who read the newspaper are the people who are already voting, because they have enough of a sense of being part of Plymouth to be reading the local newspaper. You follow these things through, but you need to get in touch with the people who are not presently involved.
Yeah, and the readership level with the Old Colony, I think, is like something like 25% of the community gets the Old Colony. So
Yep.
there's still a large portion, 75% of the people that don't.
The
that
people
don't get
do
that.
read Wicked Local, and that has a
Yeah,
lot
they
of
go online and
information.
read. Yep, sure.
I don't know
sure.
if that's counted in the 25%.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was actually 25% is actually the newspaper itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know
The
if they
hard
have a way to
copy.
find that out. But yeah, so there's no excuse for people not to find out about how to vote and how to get there. So, you know, and you bring up a great point about Precinct 15, which is, you know, I know a lot of people say it's the Pine Hills, but it's, you know, the whole Beaver Dam area that's outside the Pine Hills as well. But it's interesting that they are a community, and they are energized, and they are connected, and they do have a great communication with, among others. But why can't the other 14 precincts do the same thing?
Well, I think that it's
Or can they?
Yeah, well, I mean, they certainly could, but there's not a specific coherence to a precinct necessarily. There is a coherence to the town, and it's a question of how do you get people. It's not so much how do you get people to the polls. It's how do you get people worrying about who the candidates are. It's automatic once they care about who the candidates are to actually show up on the election day.
But how do they get to learn about, or how do they want to learn about them?
Right.
It's not how can they, because
Well, one thing I wonder about is that there's a lot more signs, remember to vote signs, that are already out, more than we had in past years. And actually, last year we had more than the year before. This year we also have signs that are put out by town meeting members. Precinct 3 has their signs that are in a lot of yards there in that precinct. And so I think that we're seeing a resurgence, and it's possibly due to the fall voter frustration.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah, that's a great
from our
point.
recent local.
I
don't mean local, but
the national, yeah, for the
national,
president, yeah,
right.
yeah. Let's talk
fall
about that, because
election.
that's a great point, Martha. Do we think that this will carry over into the local level? Now, it's interesting that what was it? Maybe 10 years ago, the Tea Party came out of the whole Republican Party, you know, and that was a big surge instead. Now you're seeing the indivisible group that's
Yes.
coming out now, and you see a lot more people getting active, which is terrific, and particularly a lot of young people you see getting involved. Do we think, Larry, that may translate into more people coming out on the local level?
If you know, I think it would. I think that the people who are presently involved, for example, with Indivisible, are people who were people already involved in town government and becoming more passionate about their involvement. And the key to the whole situation is bringing more people into the movement.
I'd like to go back to one thing
Please, yeah, go
about
ahead.
the community at the Pine Hills, which is wonderful, and speak to what Plymouth has been involved in with for a long time, are the centers, the 5, I believe, different centers, village centers.
Village centers, yeah.
And that continuing, like, I realize that the Manamet House is, has
Symes
been
House, Sims House, whatever you want to call it.
somewhat
Yeah.
controversial,
Yeah.
but that's a wonderful community asset for Manamet. And you know, hopefully as the town grows, we'll have more like that. When you think of Red Brook, which is a long ways from where I live, near Plymouth Plantation, is the YMCA that's there. Now that's a tremendous community builder also. I mean, so many people work out at gyms and it becomes a family affair.
But how do we then translate that, those community centers in those areas into getting people to the polls, though? What are some of the other ideas that the precinct chairs brought up?
I'd have to look at this right here, but talking about town meeting members and trying to expose the people that are running to town meeting for town meeting member to the constituents of each precinct might help.
And help them try to coordinate to get people out.
Yes, in other words, in an individual precinct effort to get people to vote for your town meeting members, you're more apt to know them maybe. But anyway, to expose the town people running for candidates for town meeting to the members of each precinct.
But is and we talked off camera as well with regard to I think you mentioned like West Elementary School on election day they'll have more people at the soccer games there that then go to vote, and probably a lot of those people are there anyways but don't walk across the parking lot to vote. So it's still that trying to get that connection to get them in there.
Yeah, what I think is interesting is that there are some subjects that do grab people's attention.
Yeah.
I mean, $50 million is a fair amount of money. And we had a sewer problem that is going to cost $50 million approximately to fix. And people seemed excited about that question as they were talking about it. And it seems clear to me that the different selectman candidates have different ideas on how to fund the repayment of the $50 million. It doesn't seem to have a carryover. Even something as big a topic as that, somehow people's eyes glaze over even though the amounts of money is large. But you would think that at this point, people should be working very hard at getting as many people interested in that sort of thing. And the way we communicate at this point seems to be on computers.
Yeah, well, when you take up that issue of the sewer, I mean, in the spring of 2016, the Pine Hills really, Precinct 15 really came out. And it was because of that issue.
Right.
Do you remember the percentage of the people that came out of there?
37% in Precinct 15, 4% in Precinct 9.
And the whole town together was what?
Was about 14.
So it still only went to that between 11 and 18%, even with
Yeah.
that issue. So it only really resonated with one precinct.
Right, and I suppose it's easier to get people against something than for something, but we're a town with a $200 million budget. You'd really want to think that people would want to be participating in an election to deal with it.
Do you think, too, that our current form of government with the town meeting representatives, that maybe disconnect people, maybe, the general public, because they're not involved? I wonder how it would compare to other towns that have town meeting where they, the general public has to come and they have to get a quorum of 300 or 400 people.
Our
Does it make
representative
does it make a
town
difference
meeting
by towns or no?
Yeah, it does. As a matter of fact, Plymouth's town meeting works. The town of Framingham is about to become the city of Framingham on January 1st. They've already voted for that because they couldn't get people to run for town meeting. And not only couldn't get people to run for town meeting, but even when there were vacancies and all you had to do was raise your hand and said, yep, I'm willing to do it, they couldn't get people to serve as town meeting members. They had a disorganized town meeting. Plymouth's town meeting, as you very well know, is extremely organized. The various parts work together so that it's a quickly functioning and efficient process. I think that that's a sign that Plymouth is working. People get excited. I know there was a young lady from Precinct 14 who felt aggrieved at a certain matter. There was something that was being bought near her property. she ran for town meeting and
Oh, I
is
remember
now,
that. Yeah,
is now
yeah.
a town
Yep.
meeting member and is able to do that. And I don't know that the people in Plymouth understand A, how important town meeting is, or B, how comparatively easy it is to get on the ballot. 10 signatures, it's easy.
Yeah, well, I guess my question was not so much, I agree with you on that, but like if we look at Duxbury and Kingston, what's the percentage that they get out? Is it about the same?
No,
It's
you
less.
mean in terms of
vote,
turnout
yeah,
in the
turn
vote?
election.
Just modestly better.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
1 or
because my
2%.
point there was that maybe people feel that town meeting representatives take care of all the business of town anyways. So why do we need to come out and vote? Because we don't have to go to town. We don't go to town meeting. We as voters, if we're not a town meeting member, can't even talk at town meeting for the most part.
Right.
So why bother going there? And I've heard people say this. So and why bother going out to vote then on the local
Because you
level?
vote for your town meeting members.
Right, and I don't think people
Who are
realize
then
that though. Yeah.
voting for all the important
yeah.
issues that happen every day to you.
Any other thoughts or ideas of how we can get people motivated to get out? Anything from the league?
The only
or
thing I can
voters?
think of right now is that so much is on public access TV, PAC TV. When I say so much, selectmen's meetings, finance committee meetings, precinct, I don't know if they're exactly the committee chair meetings are on, but planning board meetings. There's a lot of Plymouth meetings that you can watch. You don't have to go to them. I mean, it's better to go to them, but now you can be so easily informed that way.
You know, I just think societies nowadays, people are just so rushed and they're doing so many different things that you don't hear people, watching a lot of TV anymore. Not a lot of downtime to do all that.
Well, it's not only watching, but Plymouth is a community that works very effectively because we have multiple committees doing the advisory work and doing the decision work. And becoming a member of one of those committees or participating in the meeting, it is amazing how much power a person can have simply by showing up at one of these meetings. The hours of town hall keep changing because 1 or 2 people get up and say a lot, I really want you to do something about it. So people who participate have an amazing amount of power.
Yeah,
That's
so
an
true.
important
It's so
that's an
true.
important piece.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, I thank you both for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, and thank you for what you do with the league. I know you're getting more and more members involved, and you folks
We are.
You
So
folks
that's
do
a good
yeah, it's a
sign.
good sign. You folks are doing a great job. Hopefully this show helps and other things help to get people out. But I personally believe, local elections is where it's really at and where people can make a difference. And we hope people get out and vote. So thank you so much again for what you all do, for the community.
You're welcome.
We hope you found this show very informative. And would ask when it's time to vote on May 20th, or any other time, whether local, state, or national, please get out and vote. Men and women fought for us, and in many cases gave up their lives for our right to vote. So please remember that. Thanks to Tom and Ben and all the folks here at PAC TV for another great show. We'll see you next time on State Matters.